So Senator Ted Cruz really believes that hitting Iran, not occupying Iran, is in our best interest. I see all the calls up there. I'll get to him shortly. But right now, it's my privilege to bring on to the show General Philip Breedlove, now retired, four-star general in the U.S. Air Force, served as commander of the U.S. European Command, as well as the 17th Supreme Allied Commander of Europe of NATO Allied Command Operations. General, is it your sense that we'll almost have the assets in place to effectively take out Iran's ballistic missiles and finish off their nuclear program?
Well, first of all, Brian, thanks for having me on this morning. I think we've had enough force in place for some time to make a major strike into those target sets you mentioned. I think what the president is doing now is bringing forward a force that could sustain an attack on those target sets that you talk about. But you used a pretty absolute term. Can we take out their ballistic missile capabilities and programs? That's a tall task, and starts with knowing where all of them are. We have a pretty good idea, and I think that with what we're bringing into place in the Middle East, we could do severe damage to their capabilities.
What would that do for national security if Iran was no longer a threat?
Well, it's a big change to what goes on in the world. You know, I know that many of our documents label Iran as the #1 exporter of terrorism around the world. And if you cut the snake's head off, the rest of the snake quits wiggling. And there's a lot of black flags in the Middle East around Israel and other places that would then not have the supply lines, the support, et cetera, et cetera. So it would make a big difference.
So right now they're having nuclear talks. They say they have a framework, but is that really the primary responsibility? I sense that we did a great job setting them back. And I sense that if they start building it up again, Israel will be the one taking them out. So without any air defense too, this seems to be the moment, but it's more than building a nuclear weapons program, isn't it?
It is. And Brian, if you just remember this conversation as little as a couple of weeks ago, the whole conversation was about stopping the murder of civilians and Christians in Iran. And then that narrative morphed into going after stopping their nuclear program. So I think that our president and the administration has a broad set of objectives in Iran. And therefore, there's a lot riding on this. And frankly, one would hope that Iran watches the second carrier battle group sailing towards them. And the world doesn't know all of the force that's moved in on the ground, the normal air forces, land-based, including 2 different stealth platforms that have moved into the area. There is an immense amount of firepower that's being assembled.
General, does it bother you if you're sketching out a battle plan that the UAE and Saudi Arabia says you can't use our airspace?
Well, that will severely complicate things, but let's just wait and see how this all shakes out.
That might be what they're saying publicly, but it might be different.
Who knows? You know, these things happen all the time where there's public posturing to try to keep everything tamped down. But then when the day comes or the hour comes, we'll see what really is enforced in the Middle East.
But because
These are, in general, our friends.
Right. You know, Saudi Arabia and Iran are not friends. That's not a friendly regime, but they just don't like the idea of anarchy on the ground, which there are risks, right, General Breedlove? I mean, there are risks to taking this action.
There is. There always is risk. There never is a zero risk approach. And here's the bottom line. These countries, this is their backyard. And what they don't want to see is a conflagration start in their backyard. And we do know, I think the scariest scenario is that Iran finally sees that they're going to lose it. And so they use it before they lose it. And I think this is on the mind. I just came back from a trip to the Middle East, and I'll not share exactly who I met with, but one of their greatest fears is that they that Iran sees if we don't use our missiles now, we'll lose them in this strike. And then they sort of fire their entire salvo to get what they can out of them. And that is a concern to our friends and allies in the region.
Here's what Ted Cruz said, cut 6.
We are at an extraordinary moment in history. It is entirely possible, Sean, that in the next 6 months, we will see the regimes fall in Iran, in Venezuela, and in Cuba. And we could also see governments replace them that want to be friends with the United States of America. Now, let me be clear. I'm not being Pollyannish about this. There are 1,000 things that can go wrong. But if that happens, this would be the most consequential geopolitical shift since the fall of the Berlin Wall, since America won the Cold War without firing a shot. I spoke with President Trump the day before yesterday, and we talked in particular about Iran. And I said, this moment, the regime is teetering. The Ayatollah is in his last days. And I said, do not let this opportunity pass.
Would you have advised the same thing? And do you agree with his analysis?
Well, let me say I agree with almost everything the senator said. I do believe there is opportunity here. But he was also very quick to point out there is opportunity for things to go badly. And so this is a risk-benefit calculation that has to be made. And as a military guy, our job is to point up to our leadership. We firmly believe in civilian control of the military. We point up to our leadership and say, here are the risks that are involved in this. And then the leaders, the political leaders, make these decisions. The one place that I disagree a tiny bit with the senator is getting it right with Iran is an incredibly big deal. But I would offer that we are not getting it right with Russia right now. And it would be a bigger deal if we could get things right with Russia.
I agree. I want to give to there too before I move on though. It looks like the president says there's a 90% chance. He says he's getting impatient, 90% chance we do things. I just like to know, for you in particular, we took out the Israel took out the generals. We knew there a lot of them in bed. Do you believe we also know the politicians? And then what do you aim for on the ground? The IRGC, is there somebody less, a little bit more attractive that we could deal with? Do you think we've identified people like Rouhani or somebody else that we might be able to work with in Israel for that transition? Excuse me, not Israel, Iran.
I knew what you were talking about. I would like to think that all of the things you put out there are correct. I do believe we have incredible intelligence there. I believe the Israelis had immaculate intelligence there. I think we're sharing with the Israelis, and I think there is a plan on how to shape and maybe take advantage of people that would be more open to the whole West, not just to the United States or Israel, but someone that might be more cooperative. And I certainly hope, when you talk about the IRGC and others, we do need to remember that this all started with a conversation about stop killing your civilians. And we need to shape that too. We need to make sure that the people that are responsible for that meet their maker.
I hear you. And General, does it bother you that maybe the UK and France, who have been with us in the past on these airstrikes, will not be there, it seems, this time? It seems, but we're partnering directly with Israel, which that has not been the case in the past.
Yeah, this is more for representational than anything else. Having the military cooperation of Israel is paramount. They have great capability. You saw how they shut down the air defenses of Iran in about 36 hours. Some say 2 days, but in about 36 hours, Iran was laid bare. And so it's important that we have a military cooperation with Israel. As far as our European allies, it's hard to ask a SACEUR and get any other answer other than it's good to have their support and cooperation, and we should keep working towards that.
Do you think NATO's stronger or weaker today?
It's getting stronger day by day, and people either fault or love President Trump based on how he's treated NATO. Whether you like his tactics, techniques, and procedures or not, here's a fact. He's the first president since the creation of NATO to get NATO to invest more in itself, and that's important. And that investment is improving NATO.
I agree. And it looks like we're working out the trouble with Greenland there. General Breedlove, our guest. So, General, I could not be more impressed 4 years in with the Ukrainian army, the way they performed in possible circumstances. And now we have, for the first time, the Russians losing more than they were able to replace. There's talk about a situational draft, people drafted against their will. Could you talk about how that's playing out in the trilateral talks?
So here's the disappointing thing is Russia is trying to project that it's winning. You know, and I know that in the last 3 days, because of the cut of the Starlink and the inability to command and control their own troops, Ukraine in 3 different axes have regained months worth of
I did
territory.
not know that. That's good.
They have. And so Russia is backing up in 3 different places. And what is not out there, unless you read certain, like The Economist and a few other, 3 of the largest enterprises in Russia are in insolvable problems financially. I know the facts on 2, so I'll mention them. The third one I won't mention because I won't until I have facts. But Rosneft, their oil industry, are almost insoluble at this moment. Their debt is so high, and it is in hard currency, not rubles, that they're in debt, that they are really in trouble. And the railroads, which are the lifeblood not only of Russia, but of the Russian army, they're almost insoluble. It is real problems for them right now. And so Russia is trying to present this big, proud face that we're winning. I would tell you, this is not the picture of a nation that's winning.
But I would say this, and I think you're based in reality. The president's tactics are unique to any president. They'll be writing about it for years. What worked, what was off the seat of the pants, and what was scripted, we'll find out later. However, if he did not come in and have a relationship with Putin, nobody would be talking right now, because we clearly know who the good guys are. But the president said, listen, I got to mess with you. We got to get you to talk. And if he came in and said, you're a brutal dictator and an autocrat, you poison and kill your enemies, how dare you, we wouldn't be talking. So what we'll be doing is going for the complete victory. But as you know, NATO wasn't giving them enough to give them a complete victory. Joe Biden wasn't doing that. No HIMARS, here's HIMARS. No Patriots, here's Patriots. No F-16s, here's F-16s. Right? We saw this, no ATACMS, here's ATACMS. They weren't letting them win, but they weren't finding a way to get them off, an off-ramp. So whatever you think how we got there, there's only one country that could bring 3 together. Am I overstating it?
Well, I take umbrage with a few things you said, but in general, your tact is correct. It is good that we're talking. When this war, and here's one place I do differ with you, you talked about 4 years. This war is 12 years long.
Oh, yeah.
It started when I was the sector.
Yep.
This is the 3rd phase of a 12-year-long war. And so back then, they cut me off from talking to Valery Gerasimov, who I had a steady conversation.
And who's that?
Going on. That's the military commander of Russia's forces, General Valery Gerasimov. And I was told to stop talking to him, first by NATO and then second by my boss, President Obama. And I think that was a mistake. When we are about to have problems, we need to talk more, not less. So I endorse the things you were saying. But I must say this. We are dealing from a position of strength with Iran, with Venezuela, with everybody in the world. But in Russia, we are trying to find peace through weakness. Mr. Putin has rebuffed our president over and over as we try to find peaceful ways ahead. And then he punctuates his rebuffing by slamming into Kyiv after the talks that fail every time. And I think we need to show Mr. Putin that we want to talk, we want to cooperate, but we also are going to drive this narrative, because right now Mr. Putin feels like he's absolutely in charge of this narrative.
I can't challenge, number one, I wouldn't, but I can't challenge any of your facts. But But I would say, understand too, we're blowing up the ghost ships or taking them. And we also convince India to stop buying oil. So what he's doing is not doing it loudly, but he is really putting the pressure on Russia. But I am somewhat frustrated when he tells Zelensky to get going. And I'm thinking to myself, he's already going. So, and he knows how.
We don't need to ask the victim to give up more right now.
I hear you.
We need to ask the aggressor, the bad guy. Let's just put it in cowboy terms.
Yeah.
We need to ask the bad guy to give something up now.
And I think maybe delivering tomahawks would be the message that Putin would understand. General Philip Breedlove, thanks so much. Always great.
Great to talk to you, Brian.